So, well, you don't know this. Some of you don't know this. 3 weeks after I started working here, right? 3 weeks after I started working, I wear a suit every day. I always have, right? Because I got comfortable doing it in real estate. Well, Wes comes up to me, the new guy, doesn't know me.
You told me this.
He's like, "Hey man, I got this thing coming up, and I just
My niece's wedding in Baltimore.
niece's wedding in Baltimore." He's like, "Can I borrow a suit?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." They gave him Tony Rodriguez and John Bull. They gave him so much shit. They were like, "What are you gonna borrow socks and underwear too?" Like, what are you doing? You don't know this guy. He asked him for a suit.
That's funny.
Hell yeah.
It was
Yeah,
funny,
looks like my size.
and it worked, right? And then,
Did it fit pretty well?
They fit like a fucking glove.
so he wore this one to your daughter's wedding, right?
wedding.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Just last week or the yeah, dead serious. Dead
Look at the
serious.
pictures of us dancing on the
I don't mind. I have like 20 suits. You know what I mean? Like
Oh, he wore that one.
he wore this one. This
Oh,
actually
look at that.
like 2 weeks ago to his daughter's
That's
wedding. Yeah.
That's the same exact same.
Yeah.
Well, if you ever need camouflage, you know who to ask.
Okay.
That's right. If I ever go hunting, I know who to come to.
Damn
Like,
right.
yeah.
That's some of the pictures.
Yeah, it looks so good.
Fucking
Yeah,
suit is
that's
awesome.
a good looking suit, man.
That looking good.
All right. All right, so we'll get started. I won't take up. Again, I'm going to try to keep this. I'm going to try to keep this to a minimum. 30 minutes is our goal, right? It turns out 30 minutes is really what it's coming to. But I'm going to do as fast as I can. Obviously, you know what to do if you get called or whatever. Who remembers what this was? We're going to review. Why? Because we're not sharp enough to remember it the first time. We got to keep seeing it. Me too.
Where
Me too.
you
I've
are.
seen this for 16 years, right?
Like where you are.
Yeah, this is a success map. Starts with where am I now?
And what's it gonna take to get to there.
Where do I want to be?
Why?
Why do I want to get there? Connect the heart to it, right? You got to connect the emotions. Think about this in relation to that. Every memory that you have, and we're going to get into memory and how that affects us here, but every memory you have is tied to an emotion. If you don't have an emotion tied to a memory, you don't have the memory. Okay? So why is it important to tie your emotion to your journey? It's because it's the only way you're going to stay motivated. It's the only way you're going to remember to stay on track. And the last one, step 4 of the success map is how. And we rearrange the the letters in how to who. Because if somebody's accomplished what you're trying to accomplish, and if you can model behavior, you can succeed faster, right? You can get what you want faster. It's the same reason why I read a lot of books. If I can read a book that it took somebody 10 years to write, and I can read it in a week, let's say, or even a month, in that time frame that it took me to read that book, I condensed 10 years of experience down to a week, right? If I can listen to a book in a day, if I can read a book in a day, I can get 10 years of experience. So I can have all the experience without all the time, right? I'm condensing time. This is time travel, my friends. Einstein. Then next, we talked about writing your goals. Who has not yet written their goals? Be honest.
I wrote mine the same day that you said it.
Good. Listen, and the reason I'm harping on it is because the power of writing them down is huge. We've talked about this, right? And Joseph and I talked about it for a little while yesterday, that you don't have to do the whole thing at once. Write one sentence, right? And then if you want, you can write a second one. But make it a goal to write it one sentence a day until you get through what you're actually after. So what that is that's a technique where you set the bar as low as physically necessary. Meaning, if your goal is to go running every day, your goal doesn't have to be, or your demand on yourself doesn't have to be, I have to go for a 2-mile run. Maybe it starts with, I just got to put my shoes on, right? I just got to dress, put my shoes on. Once I put my shoes on, if I feel like I don't want to go for a run anymore, I can take them off. But as long as I put my shoes on, as long as I get dressed and put my shoes on, I don't have to run. Now, most people, once you get to that point, you're going to at least go outside, and then you're going to start moving, right? So set the bar as low as you need to make your progress. So maybe it's just one sentence. One a day. Before you know it, you've got your goals written out. You got something to move toward. RPM is what?
Results.
Purpose.
Massive action.
Results, purpose, massive action. It's a time management, life management system, right? It's the idea of beginning with knowing what you want, right? Knowing what you want, why you want it, and then taking massive action to get there, because we said the only thing that gives you real power is not knowing, but
You said it's results,
results,
uh-huh,
purpose,
uh-huh,
massive action plan,
massive, okay.
right? MAP, M-A-P, massive action plan. That's your map to get where you're going, to your result. But we were talking about massive action. The only thing that gives you power is massive action, right? Knowing and not doing is the same thing as not knowing.
Yep.
Right? True. All right. We did this. We had a definition of success. We had some fun with that one, right? And the definition of discipline, which is my favorite. The definition of success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. That means you have to have an ideal set up. You have to know where you're going. You have to know what you're heading towards, and then make progress towards it. Remember? And the definition of discipline, because we say it takes discipline to get there, but discipline is not fun. But if we redefine discipline as something that's not painful, but rather something that is a choice or a decision between what you want the most and what you want right now. If you have it written down what you want the most, if you've clarified that for yourself, and you look at it to remind yourself, because we forget that weakling in the mirror lurks and says, come on back. Exactly. It says, come on back, right? You don't have to do this. Stop trying so hard. YOLO. Right? And then the definition of failure. Right? How do we define failure? We talked about that. Failure is a step along the journey to success. So if we fear failure, then we're never going to get to success. Most of us, yeah, you like that one, Joseph? Most of us fear failing, which means we're never going to get there. So you got to get rid of the fear of failure. You got to realize failure is just part of the process. Fail fast, fail forward. Right? Learn from the failures. Right? You're either succeeding or you're learning. That's what winners do. Remember? That's the drawing that we put success here and failure along the way. Losers put themselves between failure and success, and they think they're opposite directions. Don't be a loser. Be a winner. And then we talked about the growth and contribution being such an important part of who we are. You don't remember that one?
I wasn't here for that.
Oh, good. We have videos.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. So go back and watch. If you don't understand where that comes into play, we're going to talk a little bit about it today. I'm going to ask you to define a new word today. Yeah, my brain didn't move faster than my hand, thank God. What word is that? Responsibility. Who has a good definition of responsibility?
Your obligation to handle a task for purpose.
Obligations, purpose. To handle, you said task.
Yeah.
A task. Okay. Anybody else?
I like that one.
You like that one?
Yeah.
I like it.
Obligations to handle tasks.
That's your responsibility, your obligation, or your purpose. Right? Hopefully those are in alignment. To handle a task. Okay, I like it. So the real question is, not what's the definition, but that time my hand moved faster, or my brain moved faster than my hand. Who or what are you responsible to?
Yourself.
Okay?
Family.
Family.
Your job.
Spouse.
I like to put mission in there too, right? What would you say?
I mean, I guess spouse falls on the family.
Sure, spouse. Let's put it up there.
Uh-huh.
It falls on the family.
You're responsible to your own achievements
Uh-huh.
and failures.
Yes.
The failures are the steps to the achievement.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I did that again. Failings. Right? So it's not a state of being, but rather a process. I like that. All right. Some people say responsible to God. Who else? Anybody else?
Yeah, most definitely.
I know that matters to a lot of people. All right, so there's a rule. Have you ever heard of Jordan Peterson?
Yeah, you talk about it.
I'll talk about him, I do. Yeah, we're going to talk about his rules. He has a book called 12 Rules for Life. And if you haven't picked it up, it's worth it. It's a great read. My daughter read it. She enjoyed it. I don't know if my wife has read it yet. But 12 Rules for Life, an antidote to chaos. That's the subtitle of the book. We live in chaos sometimes, right? And as responsibility relates to rule number 2, that's what I'm going to try to drive home a little bit today. Who knows what rule number 2 in 12 Rules for Life is? Who's got a computer? This is going to make sense.
According to Wikipedia, 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos is a 2018 self-help book
Sorry,
by
I'm
the
trying
Canadian...
to stop it.
No, you're good.
All right, I got number 2.
Okay?
Treat yourself like you are someone you are responsible for helping.
Yep.
Ooh, these are great.
Yes, they are. So I said, read the book. It is absolutely worth it. So I bring up rule number 2 because it's the same thing we've been talking about, right? In the beginning, and I think in the very first session, I talked about the wheel of life. And in the wheel of life, we talked about the fact that you're not where you want to be, right? If you use that wheel to drive on, it's going to be a bumpy ride. And so some of us experience that right now. And that right now, you're probably not who you need to be. Do you feel like you're good enough right now? Anybody? Do you feel like you are good enough to get to where you want to be right now? Or are there some improvements that you need and want to make?
Always improvements.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. So the good news is, right now, I think there's a conflict, and Jordan Peterson touches that conflict, and which is why he's actually a controversial figure right now. It's very interesting. The book is all about getting your life in order, and taking responsibility for your own life, and how to do that. And he has a big following of a lot of men, because he's finally saying to people, no, you're not good enough, right? Because right now, that's the message we're sharing with each other. You're good enough. You're good the way you are. And we know it's a lie, right? There's this internal conflict, right? If you're looking for the comfort or the happiness that comes with being where you need to be already, you're playing a game where you're going to fool yourself into believing that. When somebody says, don't worry about it, you're fine, the part of you that pushes back against that resists that, knows better, because you're not good enough. The good news is you can be, right? But if you're dead wood, 95% dead wood, then you need to burn off the dead wood, right? Even if that means you're left as a husk of what you are right now, you can become something better, right? You want the dead wood to die off. You want the parts of you that are weak to die off. That's what we keep talking about, right? Now, it's hard to do that, right? We've said that in the beginning, right? If it takes 66 days to create a habit, the first third, it's going to be hard, then it's going to get messy, and then it's going to be glorious, right? I asked you in the beginning, if your mentor did the job that you do, if somebody you looked up to, your hero professionally, or personally, whatever it is, was in your position, would your job look like it looks? Right? I think of my mentor, I think of a man named John Cassidy. And man, if he was doing my job, he would blow it out of the water. And so that's what inspires me. When I'm going into a deal, I remember what John would do. Right? WWJD, right? And I remember, okay, this guy would use his charm and his charisma, his actual care for other people, to have a conversation, to encourage the person to think differently than they presently think, to see the value that he's trying to show them so that they can make a decision that's going to enrich their lives. That's a very different approach than just taking the deal, just running paperwork. Right? And so that's all about the communication with yourself. That kind of communication with myself has changed my game. Right? And putting that in writing and actually looking at it and saying, that's what it is. And refining it. Right? Using the right words to move me to get the emotion tied in. Now, I don't know what words are going to move you, but you need to figure that out. And sometimes it's a 5 cent word, not a $50 word that you need. Right? Some people aren't moved, and you might be one. You're not moved by $1 million words. It's the simple ones, because those are the ones that juice you up the most. Figure out what that is. So this rule, the reason I thought this would be where what we talk about today is because so many times we won't do what is best for us. But if you have a loved one, now the great example, and I think he uses this in the book, and if it's not him, somebody else does. Maybe Dr. Joe Dispenza in his book. But I'm pretty sure Jordan Peterson talks about the fact that, let's say you had a dog. You had a dog who was sick and needed to take vitamins or medication. It is statistically true that you are more likely to give your dog the medication that they're supposed to take to get better than you are to take your own medication. Mm-hmm. Because, and Tony Robbins talks about this fact, people will do more for those they love than they'll ever do for themselves. So you got to start thinking of yourself, or I'm inviting you to start thinking of yourself as somebody you're responsible for helping. Right? Because we said you don't do what you tell yourself to do. You give yourself a command and you say, this is what we're after, and then you don't follow through on it. Anybody ever done that before?
Yeah.
Yep.
So what do we say about that? And it's actually, I think, Jordan Peterson that says it in some of his lectures. You're a terrible employee and a worse boss. Fire yourself and become somebody different. And that's what this calling is. Right? That's why I talk about Jordan Peterson so much. The good news is you can. Right? You can become somebody better because it's inside of you. You can get rid of the weak stuff. So imagine you're somebody that you're actually responsible for helping. And you're going to negotiate with yourself on what it is. What do you want? What do you really want over the next year, over the next 90 days, over the next 5 years? What are you really after? If you could have, and Jordan Peterson says this all the time, if you watch his lectures, you'll be like, Stephen, you basically plagiarized what he's saying. Yeah, because I've listened to it 1,000 times. I'm talking to me right now. Again, this is why, if you guys weren't even, thank you for coming, but if you weren't sitting here, I'd be doing this anyway. And I'd be staring at the camera the whole time, right? So I didn't look like an idiot looking at nobody. But I'm talking to me. This helps me as much as it helps you, because when I treat myself like I'm somebody I'm responsible for helping, I do a better job at taking care of myself. I can be honest with myself. I can look myself in the mirror and say, these are the things you're not following through on. These are the things you're doing really well, but these are the things you really want to focus on. Don't hide from it. Put it down on paper. Write it up and move towards it. Figure out what is it that I really want. Make that disciplined decision to say, this is what I'm after. So, treating yourself like somebody you're responsible for helping means that you actually care about yourself. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole touchy-feely, do you care about yourself thing, but I'm going to bring it back to writing down your goals for a moment. So, who in your life, and you don't have to answer this out loud, but you can think about it, and if you want to share, you can. Who in your life do you do more for than yourself? Who is somebody you feel a responsibility to? And I'll share one of mine. Obviously, my family, right? So that's the easy answer. And I think all of us will say that, right? I would kill for my family, right? If somebody hurt my daughter, I have no problem spending time in jail. None whatsoever. Try me, right? I think most of us feel that way, right? Especially if we have kids. But my job, I feel responsible to my team here. To my team here. My responsibility is to make sure that I do my job at the highest level so that everybody wins. When a salesperson brings a deal to the desk and you work the deal and then you bring it to finance, I'm the last interaction. We're the last interaction that they have before they leave the dealership. So we have an immense responsibility, right? And so that's one thing we didn't put up there. Our greatest responsibility, it's how we make a living. Our greatest responsibility here is to our customer, right? We don't think about it that way, right? When you treat it like a job, that's why I like to put mission next to that. When you treat it like a job, we forget that your customer is your guest. We forget that part of it. We forget that we spend so much time here and we end up talking about, oh God, and I'm guilty of it too. I just want to go home.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We talk about that. Like, oh man, we haven't done any deals today. Just ready for tomorrow. Right? And I'm not throwing stones. I do this. Right? We all do this because it's natural. I guarantee you there are days where Tony's like, I'm ready to get the heck out of here. All of us, everybody, right? So this isn't like, oh, shame on you. This is, let's acknowledge that. Right? Because if our enthusiasm isn't up, if our heart's not in it, we're gonna lack on our presentation. We're gonna lack in our ability to connect with another human being. And that's what this is all about. My wife said something to me, and first, before I go into that, if I forget, remind me of that. Who knows who Zig Ziglar is?
Heard that name before. I know he's a motivational somebody.
He did speak motivationally. He was a speaker for a long time because he was one of the greatest salesmen.
Right.
Arguably, right? But I think he's one of the greatest salesmen ever. And he tells a story, and I forget which book it was, but it's actually him just speaking. He tells a story. He's sold pots and pans, by the way. Zig Ziglar tells a story of this family who, back in the day, when you sold pots and pans, you went door to door. And so you went into a town, you made appointments, and you go to people's houses, and you demonstrate the pots and pans, just like we demo a car. And you show them how you cook a nice meal. John Cassidy, my mentor, sold pots and pans. One of the best at it. Zig Ziglar tells a story of a family. He goes into the family's house. Man is a hard-working man, breadwinner. Obviously, back in that time, every guy brought home the bacon, and he had a wife and children at home. And Zig does his best demonstration, fulfills his responsibility to his customer, does his best demonstration, asks for the sale. The man, because the pots and pans were expensive, said, I can't afford that. The man says, I can't afford that. And he gives him all the reasons why. He says, we've got this bill and that bill. My daughters need this. I need to buy this. They're too expensive. And Zig Ziglar listened to the man carry on and tell him all the reasons why he couldn't buy his pots and pans. And Zig tried to overcome his objections. The man said, they're just too expensive. Zig packed up his pots and pans, left his house, respected his position. A couple days later, Zig finds out that man hates him. He is so pissed off at Zig Ziglar. And so he goes and he asks why. He says, I came to your house and you told me why you couldn't buy. He said, because I saved up the money. I saved up the money to afford the pots and pans that my wife wanted. And instead of selling them to me, you listened to me that they were too expensive. And you didn't sell me the pots and pans. Your customer is going to come into this dealership not for eggs and bacon, as Elvis likes to say. They come here for a reason. Our responsibility is to make sure that we connect with them, understand their wants and needs, so that when they're saying no, it's too much money, it's too expensive, I can't afford it. We present the value to them. We show them why they're here. We remind them of the pain that they're trying to get away from and the pleasure that they're trying to gain. It is our responsibility to present that information in a way that moves them emotionally to make the best decision for themselves. If you do that, your closing ratio goes through the roof. Not because you said the right word track, but because you did the right thing. That's your responsibility while you're here. That's your responsibility to yourself. Are you willing to play at the highest level? Are you willing to show up for each customer at every step of the process? Are you willing to greet somebody with enthusiasm? Are you willing to do a needs analysis and pay attention? Not because it's a step in the process, but because you are understanding what it takes to serve that guest as best you can. Are you willing to then help pick the right vehicle and demo it? Do a rock star, outstanding level demonstration. Are you willing to then go on a test drive and make sure that the feel of the wheel makes the deal? Are you willing to make sure that they feel the wheel? Are you willing to trial close and ask somebody, not because it's a step, but because you want to understand, where do you feel right now? What does this feel like to you? That is my responsibility to me to up my own game, to my family to provide, because this is how we do it. We are here so many hours out of a day. You owe it to yourself. You owe it to yourself to make sure that you are stepping up every time. Don't phone it in. If you do, you're not fulfilling your responsibility to you. And if you believe in God, He made you. He gave you these gifts. Your family is not with you. You're not with them. So while you're here, if you're not being your best, you're letting them down. Your team here needs you. We don't sell cars. We don't cover the bills. We shut the business down. It happens all the time. There's nobody I want to spend more time with than my spouse. Nobody. She makes me better.
If you've ever met her, you understand
And
why.
if you've ever met her, you understand why. She's the best thing about this world.
Beautiful inside and out.
That's right. See, I like that. Thank you for the backup on that. My spouse said to me, when I was talking about what we do, and the couple that came in, they got this warranty, they got that time with, they got the mop and glow, as they call it, the NanoCure, the interior and exterior protection. We're talking about it, and I share with her about the customers that get the protection. We get it. And I was telling her one story about a couple, they just wouldn't say yes. And she said to me, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why wouldn't they say yes? The stuff you sell is the fun stuff. And I thought, yeah. You need to buy that car. Right? You want to buy that car. It's a big ticket item, but by the time you get to our office, by the time you get to finance, now you get to protect it. Now it's the fun stuff. Yeah, I want the thing that makes it look good. I want the thing that takes the dents out. I want to make sure I'm not paying for any repairs for the next 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. I want the prepaid maintenance because it gives me a discount on my maintenance. I want the tire and wheel, right? She said that to me and I said, yeah, I sell the fun stuff. Now, as a salesman, you can think the same thing. You sell the fun stuff. It's stressful. What do you mean it's stressful? This isn't stressful. You're getting a new car today. Make it fun. That's your responsibility to your guest. It doesn't matter what situation they're in. You get to influence them. Your responsibility to them is to up your standard and to be a positive influence. We read a read on influence this morning, and I was like, damn, I can't believe that it's in alignment. But of course it is. Right? The leadership book we read from, was it Maxwell? Of course it's in alignment. We get to bring the energy that we bring. So who we are, right? If you treat yourself as though you're somebody you're responsible for helping, you're going to inspire yourself to step up, to be the best version of yourself, to fulfill your responsibility to your guests. Because playing your best game is what you owe them. Being at your best is what you owe them. And if you're not willing to be at your best, let somebody else do the job. Let somebody is. Now I'm saying don't do that. Man up. Woman up. Step up. Do it. Because the way you'll feel on the other side of it, the way you'll make the impact you'll have on other people is worth it. All right, I hope that one was a good one.
Good one.